All right. Good morning from the St Croix River near Bayport, I guess. I'm somewhere between Stillwater and Hudson. That's usually the stretches I fish from the 36 bridge down to the Hudson Bridge, and I'm somewhere in between. Right now, I'm fishing in 33 feet of water, and I've been set up here for probably, I don't know, half hour getting this thing set up, and not seeing a whole lot out there. So we're just going to hang out, see if we can catch another sturgeon on live stream. Just going to see if we can get a few people to hop in and start chatting a little bit. Gosh, what a nice day it is out here. I could probably be fishing outside, but it's just a little more consistent lighting in here and no wind. But gosh, it's probably 34 degrees out there. I don't even have a heater on in here. Hopefully we'll see a few more fish come through here. It's been pretty dead for the last half hour. But I'm hoping to prove that you can come out here just any time of the day and catch a sturgeon. Everyone thinks you need to come out here, at night. And a lot of people do catch fish out here at night. But you can catch them out here during the day too. So had some free time. I thought I would come out here and hang out. Plenty of ice out here. I know there was a little bit of talk and fear about thin ice, in the area. And there is some thin ice out there in front of the power plant. You got to be careful there. But everywhere else, it's literally 16 to 18 inches. So there's no worries at all. Even with this warm weather, the ramp I used wasn't beat up at all. Everything's good out here. There is no snow, though, so definitely will have to wear some cleats out here. It must have thawed and froze overnight because there was a little bit of traction on the ice, which is kind of good. It wasn't that smooth stuff, but as soon as you get it wet, boy, let me tell you, she's slick. And it looks like we're going to get cold here again the next few days, so back into those teens and 20s, which I think is absolutely perfect for ice fishing. I don't like it above freezing, and I don't like it 20 below either, but tell you what, that 20-degree temp is just perfect for ice fishing. I did a live stream here on, how was that, Wednesday night, and everything was going good. I caught a fish like 15 minutes in. My connection was working good. My microphone, everything was just rock solid. Had a good chat going. Had a bunch of people in here. Was on for about an hour. And we had a big fish come through. And so I grabbed the camera to show everyone the fish. It was like, 5-6 footer. And I put it on the sonar there. And I have a magnet mount on my hub where the camera is. And it just snaps right on there. And I'm using a DJI pocket camera. I put it up there. And I have a long USB cord going to my laptop here. And I went to turn around to come back, and my boot caught the USB cord. And yeah, the camera found one of the 20-inch holes over here. I was able to recover it, but it's not waterproof, and it did get a little wet. So yeah, I got a new camera right here. So I wanted to test that as well. Brand new camera. That was a $600 oops. But I'll be careful. I'll be more careful this time. My wife doesn't think so. She said that one's probably going to go down the hole too. So yeah, it might. Got a few people in here. Welcome. Good morning. Probably a tough time to do a live stream. Everyone's at work, I'm sure. But I got some free time, so I figured I'd come out here and put a line in the water. That's what I tell everyone. If you have time, get out here and put some bait down there. You just never know. If anyone wouldn't mind just dropping in on the chat and letting me know if everything looks okay, the audio and video just helps me get a little confirmation, because it's tough for me to look at that and see if it's working. I hope this isn't a bad sign that I'm not really seeing anything down there, especially this spot where I'm at now. I'm usually seeing just, all kinds of activity down there. But I'm really seeing nothing right now. So hope that's not a bad sign. That's part of the deal when you come out here, though. It's a lot of setup. I was probably out here for an hour just getting everything else set up, my mats, drilling my holes. You got to drill the double holes. And I really don't want to move again. But a day like today, you probably could hole hop pretty easily. You could fish right out of your truck or just go sit on the ice too, which is a bonus. But really, once I get this set up, yeah, I don't really have motivation to move around. So you kind of cross your fingers and hope you set up in a likely spot. Thanks, Justin. Appreciate that. Glad to hear it's coming through okay. Unfortunately, this is not a very exciting form of live streaming. You're not catching many fish, and most times you're not going to catch a fish. We did luck out on Wednesday, and we caught one during the stream. So, and I'm really new to this whole streaming thing. I haven't done it a whole lot. So I'm just kind of delving into it. Got some free time and thought I would hang out, and then I don't have to sit here and talk to myself. All right, we do have a fish down here at the bottom right now. Looks like a sturgeon. He just went over this right one. It's a smaller one. He's coming over to this one. See if I can get him to slow down. Looked about a 30-incher, came across the bottom. It could have been maybe something else. I'm guessing by the size it's a sturgeon, though. And he didn't seem very interested. He just kind of cruised right on through. But he was on the bottom, so that's a good sign. Sometimes they'll go by, they'll turn around, they'll come in from the front or the back. And I do like to stir up the bottom here. See if I can coax them to come back. It's really silty, muddy down there, so I don't really jig it. I just kind of, I don't know, stir up the bottom. Kind of a hard thing to describe. I tell people, to jig it. Well, then they're jigging it up like they would, like any other fish they're ice fishing for. But you only want to bring that thing up, maybe an inch at the most, and more just kind of snapping it, stirring up all that sediment down there. That seems to get their attention. But that one didn't come back, so thanks, Hunter. Vitek, I think both are just probably about equally as good. I do like the twilight hours for my schedule. For so many years working another full-time job, it just worked out better for me to come out here at night. So I do think both times are good. I think you might end up seeing a lot less pressure out here in the morning and daytime, though. A lot of people think they have to come out here at night, and I don't think you really do. So we'll see some increased traffic out here, in the late afternoon, early evening, people getting set up. And you can catch them all night long, although in my experience, it seems like, after midnight, things too seem to die down as well, just from what I've seen. Merlin, yeah, good luck on your first time out here. The best thing I can say is just come out here and be set up and just be confident in the area you're fishing. A good rule of thumb, I would say, is 30 feet of water. If you're in 30 feet of water anywhere on this river, there's a chance you're going to catch a fish. That's not saying you can't catch a fish in 15, 10, 20. But some of those shallower areas, you do have to kind of know the lay of the land and how those fish roam through there. And you will have nights where it's pretty slow, but you have, I think you have a better shot at catching a giant up in the shallow water. It's just, you know, rolling the dice a little bit more. Out here in the basin at 30 feet of water, you'll have small fish coming through, medium-sized fish coming through all the time. So better shot at catching a fish, I think, out here in 30 feet of water. And just make sure you set up on the, after the first break, it's just, you know, like a basin. Make sure you get down to where it bottoms out, and then anywhere in between there, really. Hey, Camden, good luck. Yeah, you're going to camp all weekend again? You got to retake the first place lead, huh? I'm hoping to upgrade my score a little bit today, too. I don't plan on winning or even competing, really, but the time I get out here, I can throw up a few fish I catch. Would be nice to catch a 60, though. I haven't caught a 60 yet this year. That one you caught was really nice. Yeah, this shack works really good for this. This is the Eskimo 650 Outbreak, and honestly, it works good as a solo shack. As you can see, it's not that hard to put up yourself, and I can fit, you know, I take 3 people with me on a guide trip, so we have 4 in here, and that's not too bad. I did have someone contact me about taking it was a dad and take his 4 kids out here with, so that would be 6. I was pretty hesitant about that. I think it'd be tight in here, but I think if I push these holes all the way forward and get rid of all our gear, I think we probably could do that. So I think I might let him know that we'll try it, you know. 6 people in here would be definitely a tight squeeze, though. Wild nature, yeah, I'll show you my bait here. I'll bring one up and show you. I'm a little hesitant to bring my camera over here and show the holes. I will do that, though. I'll be real careful. I had a little bit of mishap the last time I was doing my stream, and I'm a little hesitant to be bringing this camera back and forth. But since you asked, I will show you here quick, especially to show the live scope. So let me bring this over here. So here's the hole setup. I got the double holes drilled using a bobber. And then here's the sonar. And you can see my bait as I lift it up there. So yeah, that's the kind of tour of the shack here. Got my chairs. It's pretty big. I like it. I'm definitely not going to be doing that very often, though, after dropping that camera down the dang hole. I'll reel up my bait here and show you here quick. It's I don't know where this exact rig came from. I know I was using it early on. I was using just a Carolina rig and a single hook, and it kind of evolved into a treble hook, and then kind of this. And I know it probably won't focus very well because it's tracking my face, but it's just some glow beads, like a 3/8 ounce sinker, a treble hook, and then just some night crawlers and fatheads gobbed on there. And the reason we put the beads on there, kind of my theory, I guess, is just to separate the hook from the weight and just give them sturgeon a little something softer to pick up. What I also do is I got a little this little Rapala glow case, and then I just glow up those beads. And even in the daytime, I mean, we're in 30 feet of water, so it's really dark down there. So I do still like to glow these beads up in the dark. Do that for, I don't know, 15, 20 seconds. I don't know if it makes a difference. It just gives me a little more confidence, so I just have always done it. I think that's the most important thing, is doing whatever you feel confident in. No matter how goofy it seems, if it works for you, just do it. And then we set this up so it's on the bottom, and you got to adjust your bobber stop real perfectly so the bobber just sits up. You don't want to set it too deep so it's pulling your bobber under. And I suppose you could go the other way so it's sitting on the side, but what I like is just so it's barely sitting up, because a lot of times those sturgeon, when they suck it in, instead of your bobber going down, it'll just kind of pop up a little bit, and sometimes it'll just flip over and sit on the side. And if I see it sitting on the side, I set the hook, immediately. And usually there's a fish on when it sets up on the side like that. Yeah, it is Friday. Everyone should take a sick day. Come on out here. It's so nice. This is about as nice as it gets for ice fishing, honestly. No snow, perfect ice, and 30 degrees. I mean, does it get any better than that? Like I said, you could just go, even if you don't have a shelter, you can just come out here and sit on a chair or a bucket on the ice. And yesterday was probably nice too, but sometimes when it gets too warm like that, now it's all sloppy. You get water on the ice or whatever when it gets really warm like that. Yeah, those puppies sure are annoying, aren't they? There's times you set up and that's all you're catching is mud puppies all night long. And for whatever reason this year, it seems to be like they're everywhere. No matter where you go, you're finding them. I have found that, though, you definitely see an uptick in activity after 8 p.m. on those mud puppies. And sometimes we almost use that as a judgment when to just pack up and go. When those mud puppies moved in and that's all you're catching, it's like, all right, we're just going to, because it just gets to be too much. But you will catch sturgeon amongst the mud puppies, though. I tell people, I was out here one time and I had a camera down on straight down mode, so it's looking straight at the bottom. And it was focused on my bait. And you saw this mud puppy come through and it just, chomped on my crawler. And I was just kind of watching them chew on it. And sometimes they spin around a little bit or whatever. Well, as he's doing that, a sturgeon came by and just scooted him off with his head and knocked him off to the side. And then the sturgeon ate my bait and I caught the sturgeon. So that was pretty cool to see on camera. But it's just a perfect example that, those sturgeon don't care if there's mud puppies around. Just because you're catching mud puppies doesn't mean you're not going to catch sturgeon. You just kind of have to weed through them, unfortunately. Just seen the one come through here so far. It's really odd that I'm not seeing like any small bait fish or anything. Like there's just really nothing. So I don't come out here a lot during the day, so maybe that's typical. Maybe I'm just in a spot where nothing's around. But it was a good sign. We did see that one sturgeon come through here, so it's just a waiting game. Like I've always said, it's kind of like deer hunting. You're sitting on a deer stand, waiting for the deer to come through. There's not a whole lot you can do to kind of bring them in. I suppose, although I don't think it's legal, a guy could maybe chum or something or put something down there to try to attract them. I know these guys that spear them over on Lake Winnebago, they're convinced that these sturgeon are curious, and they'll put all kinds of goofy stuff down there, golf balls and spinning objects and just things that might get their attention. They think they're curious. So I suppose a guy could try to do that. May I ask a walleye? If you're asking if we catch walleyes out here, sometimes we do. The walleyes cruise through here. Not very often, maybe half a dozen a year. Seems like the ones we do catch are pretty decent size because we do have these bigger baits down there. So I imagine some of these fish we see swim through our walleyes, but I really don't even try to, do much when I see a smaller fish down there. Just let them swim on through. A guy could have a secondary hole drilled down here probably and drop a spoon, maybe a small jig to catch crappies, but I found that it really distracts from the overall goal, and you don't catch a ton. You can catch some nice crappies there. I've seen some, 13 to 16-inch crappies out here. They catch some nice ones, but they don't hang around very often. They just kind of roam around, kind of like these sturgeon do. So, and you can chase them and catch some nice ones. But Andrew, so what the benefit of having the live scope is I know exactly where that fish is, what bait he's going for, which direction it's going. So I'll keep an eye on each bobber, and I know exactly where the bait is. And you'll see that bobber, sometimes it just kind of bobs up and down, or it'll make kind of a jerk kind of when it sucks it in. What I really like to see is the bobber coming up, though, and ideally it'll just sit on its side. And when it sits on the side, set the hook. If it's doing this other stuff, just bobbing and moving a little bit, sometimes I'll just lift up, and if I feel weight on the end, I'll set the hook. It is kind of a trial and error thing. There's no concrete way to set the hook or know when to set the hook. And unfortunately, you do run into some fish that are foul hooked out here. These sturgeon have these giant peck fins on them, right? So if you can imagine swimming through the water, there's like a big airplane wings coming through, and your line's going straight up and down. And sometimes those fins they'll swim into your line, and it runs alongside their fin here. And then sometimes the hook will actually catch what I would consider like their armpit. And when that happens, your bobber will just kind of go sideways and go right under. And that's usually when you can tell that they swam into it, because most of the times they don't just take it and run with it. They'll be down there kind of biting a little bit, filtering out the mud. So again, trial and error. I've been doing this, many years, and I still don't really know the exact time when you should set the hook, if that makes sense. Yeah, if you have just a flasher or a 2D sonar, whatever, you're going to see marks right on the bottom, sometimes a little flashing. It's almost like if you were catching walleyes right off the bottom. A big tell is your bottom will actually, sometimes you don't even see separation. You just see the bottom. All of a sudden it just gets shallower. And that's what I kind of went by. You're fishing in 33 feet of water, and all of a sudden that bottom comes up to 32 feet of water. That's just a sturgeon laying down there looking around for your bait. But so then what I would do is I would kind of jiggle your bait a bit, stir it up on the bottom, hope to get their attention. Don't do any aggressive jigging. You're probably going to scare them if you run into it or anything, but they don't mind if you just move it around a little bit down there, and sometimes it'll actually get their attention too. So other than that, that's about all you can do with a flasher, is just hope to get your attention to know that they're down there, because you're not going to jig them off the bottom and they're not going to chase your bait. It's more of just a early detection system, I guess. Yeah, good luck if you get out here, Andrew. There's not a whole lot of people out here this morning, and I did try to get away from some of the community areas with permanent shacks and stuff. I'm kind of just right out in the middle of the channel, away from everybody else. That's the other thing I would recommend, is just go find your own spot, move away from people, get away from the traffic. It's hard to do that if you set up and then someone comes right next to you. There's not a whole lot you can do about that. And I don't think honestly, I don't think it's going to hurt you if someone's fishing right next to you. The biggest thing I don't want to have, though, is even if you're fishing with friends or whatever, I wouldn't set up right next to each other, because these fish, when they're fighting, they'll run out sideways quite a ways out. And I've seen where people are fishing too close to each other, and you'll catch other people's lines. And especially if you have a really big fish, you don't want to lose a fish that way to running into someone else's line in another shelter. So that's another reason I don't like to fish too close to anyone. And Andrew, that's good. You caught a 50 and a 32. That's a good night. Anytime you catch one over 50 is exceptional through the ice for sure, I think. That's my opinion. You know, the first time I came out here in a boat was in 2003 or 2004, maybe, sometime in that area. So, you know, about 20 to 25 years ago. And I tell you what, if we caught a 50-incher back then, we were super stoked, very excited to catch a 50-incher. We didn't catch a lot of them. And now, especially in the open water, like my goal is to catch a 50-incher every trip. You know, that's what we're looking for. And quite often we will catch one over 50, which is crazy to think about. You went from hoping you catch a 50, you know, sometime during the year versus catching a 50 every time out. So these sturgeon are doing pretty well out here. Definitely slow growing though. From what I've seen, some of these tagging studies and data, like especially compared to some of these newer areas where they're stocking them, these fish are not growing really fast out here. So definitely want to try to take care of them. The good news is they're spotting good, and we're catching, you know, tiny ones out here. So the population is always growing. Keith, I'm using 50-pound Suffix on a size 40 reel, and just tied right to straight to I think it's a size 1 or size 2 treble hook with a few glow beads in between, and then a sliding sinker up above it. You can use like an egg sinker or a bullet sinker. I just have like a 3/8 ounce bullet sinker. You don't need much weight out here on the St Croix. It's like a lake, so I think that's another reason people might hurt themselves is they think they have to use, you know, 1 ounce, 2 ounce, 3 ounce, especially with a shorter leader. If your weight is closer to the hook, you run the risk of just burying your bait in this mud if you put too heavy of a sinker down. Because I put my camera down there, and you know how much little Aquaview, a tiny micro view camera, that weighs nothing, and sometimes you can drop it down there and it just sinks, you know, inches into the mud. So be careful not to hide your bait from them. That's another reason in the open water, I like to use a lot longer leader. I'll use, you know, a 20-inch leader versus like when I'm fishing up on the Rainy River, you have a lot more current. It's a lot more rock and gravel. You can get away with having a short, you know, 10 to 12-inch leader. I think that's a little short out here. I wouldn't have a leader that short because, again, you run the risk of burying that bait. Would be nice if we could catch one here on stream. But my camera's still rolling. It's not in the hole, so that's a win. Gosh, that was terrible. Not only that, my live stream just ended abruptly. And all that, I wish like the camera would have captured itself going into the hole, but it did not. There was like a 5-second delay. So by the time it cut out, it just ended before I was even walking over there. So that's what happened if anyone was watching that last live stream. The the camera went down the hole. Every once in a while, I'll just kind of stir stuff up down there too. If I'm not seeing activity, I do think that stirs up the sediment, might disperse the scent a little bit. Sturgeon are very scent orientated, so they'll get a whiff of something they want to eat, and they'll come find it. And I think they do have a lateral line on them too, so they're feeling the vibration. I I think using rattle baits would probably work, like a rattle spoon, something that's making a little noise down there. And I do have some of these new Northland glass bead spoons. I thought about using one of those too. The problem with that is you really want to upsize your treble hook. So I would recommend replacing the treble hook that's on those, even some of the bigger ones, because they're still not big enough. You hook into a 60 plus inch sturgeon, they're going to bend those hooks. Even these big size 1 or 2 I have, we caught one the other night and it still bent the hook from all that pressure. Because we do like to keep a tight drag. I don't know what the max drag is on these reels. I have Okuma Samars C40. I want to say they're 18 pounds, maybe something like that. I tend to keep them darn near maxed out. Not a lot of action down there, though. And this is what you run into when you're out here sturgeon fishing. You wait. So I tell people, bring something to watch some videos, or play some cards, or read a book. It does get a little boring. At least when you're out in a boat, you can, watch the wildlife or watch boats go by, or, you're kind of cooped up in a little shelter like this. So try to make it as fun as you can. Let's see, what mapping do you prefer? I use Navionics. That way I have it on my phone. I do have it on my sonar as well, but I have a mount on my truck, and I just like to bring that up when I'm driving across the ice so I can kind of pinpoint where I want to go. Not that it matters a whole lot, but I do have all my waypoints from open water, which helps a lot too. And I know Navionics recently increased their price, and that got people all wound up and upset about it. But even at $60, that's $5 a month for me. Like, I'm not saying anyone else, but for me, that's I don't mind that $5 a month for the amount I use it. Like, that's okay. It has a lot of features. Can connect to my unit here, my live scope, share waypoints, works all the time. It has satellite images and useful info, buoys and points of navigation and marinas. I don't know. I spend $60 on a whole lot worse things, so it's not that big of a deal, if you ask me. It's kind of nice being out here in the morning, though. Feel a little refreshed, not dog tired. I do have a guide trip out here tomorrow too, so I did want to come out and do a little scouting around, see what the ice conditions were after that warm day yesterday. It's tough for me because I live 60 miles from here, so sometimes I get here and I'm surprised by what I find. Anyone that's coming out, I know there were some concerns about that power plant area. You might have heard a vehicle went through that thin ice, and I did go up there and take a look at it just to see what it was looking like. And there's a skim ice over it, just like I thought. It's definitely different looking though from the ice around it, so you can still visually see where that area is, which is good. It just doesn't get completely invisible. And there are some signs out there, but there are not signs like all the way around it, especially if you're coming from the upstream side going downstream. All along that front edge, there's no signs there. So definitely be cautious there. If you're going anywhere near that king plant, just go all the way to the Wisconsin side and hug that shore if you want to be really safe. That open water comes out maybe a third of the way out into the channel. Well, it's not really open water anymore. It's thin ice, but that dangerous area. Or just don't even go near it. I guess that's the safest thing. But if you want to kind of fish around that area, just hang out on the Wisconsin side. I'm a little discouraged by the activity I'm seeing here, though. Like, there's really not much at all coming through here. Sort of staring at a blank canvas, unfortunately. The one good thing about that, what I have found, though, is when it's like that and you do see a sturgeon come through, a lot of times they are willing to eat and they're hungry versus just fish all over the place and sturgeon rolling through all the time. So when it's like this and then I see something come through, I do get a little more excited. Just what I've found, I guess. For releasing the sturgeon, so literally I've caught thousands, maybe over 10,000 sturgeon. I can probably count on one hand the amount of times that the hook has been deeper than the mouth. And even then you were able to get it out. So that's the good thing about sturgeon is you rarely have it gut hooked where they swallow it. Their lips are so rubbery that they'll get hooked before it goes in. If you catch it and you can't see your hook, I would definitely just recommend cutting the line. That would be the easiest thing to do. But usually you can get that hook out. And also sturgeon are very tough, I would call it. They can be out of the water. It's never good to have a fish out of the water for extended periods of time. But of all fish out there, sturgeon are one of the most hardiest. So they can stand a little extra time being out of the water. That's why, especially this cold water, I don't feel too bad about pulling them out, getting a measurement, getting a picture, and then letting them go. I can't think of one time that I had a sturgeon die or float up. That's not to say it's never happened, a day or two later. But every fish that I've saw just swims away pretty well. So again, I would not recommend just keeping them out forever, but they can stand to be out a little bit. Take some time to get the hook out. If you see the hook, you think you can get it out, I think it's better to get that hook out than get the fish back in the water really fast. Finally saw a fish come through here, but it's smaller, 15 inches or something, not a sturgeon. I'm really surprised I'm not seeing just random, there's a lot of other things out here, crappies and white bass, walleyes, moon eye, lots of stuff swimming around down here, and I'm just really not seeing anything at the moment. What rod am I using? So I have a 40-inch. It's made by Wolfram Custom. 40-inch extra heavy. I don't know if you can see this or not, but it's got a lot of beef to it. The biggest thing is the length of this handle. For any sturgeon rod, you want a really long butt down here, almost like an open water rod. And this is pretty stiff bend. Want something fairly heavy. But when you're fighting that fish, you want this leverage on your forearm. If you just have like a short handle like most ice rods, your wrist is going to take a beating when you catch a real big one. So I think some of the rods out there that you have the I've heard he quit making these, by the way, so you might not be able to find these. You might be able to find them on the secondary market. Sometimes guys are selling them. Now that he quit making them, guys maybe won't be selling them now. They'll hold on to them. I'm definitely not going to be selling mine. But you have some lake trout rods work. The Jason Mitchell Mac rods are a good option. Mud Puppy Tackle out of here in Hudson, they make specific sturgeon rods. The one I would recommend that of the ones I've seen, I think it's called the Church. That one looked really nice. In fact, I might pick one up here just to have. May even use one of those now that I can't get any more of these. Apex Predator, another local guy selling a bunch of good stuff at a reasonable price. Apex Predator. I don't know if they have a specific model. It just might be called the Ice Sturgeon rod. He's got a few options there too, and that's another good one to look up as well. You can use like a lake trout rod or even a heavy walleye rod, and you'll get hooked up. It's after you get hooked up and have to fight that fish that you realize, you know, maybe I brought a knife to a gunfight here. Especially when you catch one over 50, you really want to be ready for them. And you don't want to fight these. I see these people saying, oh, like it's celebrating or they're proud of themselves for fighting a fish for 2 hours. I'm sure it was exciting. I'm sure you had a great time, but that is not doing that fish any favors when you're fighting it for 2 hours. You're just exhausting that fish. Just use the proper gear. That's the best thing I can suggest. We're going to need to see a fish before I can catch a fish, and it's just not looking that way. Haven't even had any. We had one come through that sort of slowed down, but now I'm seeing one here come in now. That I say this, there's one coming in on the right side here. And what I'm seeing on the screen is just a bright orange ball or a long coming through the mud down there. And he's just slowly plowing through bright orange spot. This looks like a really nice one here, so let's see if we can catch this one. He's about 4 feet away from this right one. And I'm just going to try to get his attention here, jig a little bit. Now I'm going to stop. He's about 2 feet away. Now he's slowed down. Now he's coming in really cautiously. It looks like about a 40-incher. I would bring this camera over here to show you right now, but I really want to catch this fish and not kind of screw up my opportunity here. He's still about a foot away. And he looks a little bigger than I thought too. Looks like he went right around my bait. Moving in by this one here now. I can get his attention. Well, that's exactly what I want to see. Just a matter of getting him to bite now. The live scope beam is so thin that when it's right under you, you see them, but then they just swim off to the front or the back of it, and that looks like they just disappear. But sometimes they'll go to the back or to the front, and then they'll turn around and come back into the cone again. Like this one just did that, actually. He's over here at this other. Oh, now I came back to this one. He's looking for sure. It's going back and forth between the two baits. Okay, he's right on this one here on my left. Come on. He's definitely in hunt mode here, moving around. That's the other reason I kind of like to just kind of stir the bottom up a little bit. He's right on this right one now. Boy, he's definitely looking hard. Come on. Boy, he's right on it. He's coming over to this left one. Oh, I just moved to the right now. He's doing circles. He's more on this right one now. This is crazy. Oh, Fish on. Got him. All right. I got to get this line up. Hope he stays on. All right. Fish on. You still tracking? Yeah. All right. It's not a big one, or not huge, I should say, but there we go. We got him. All right. We still connected? I think we're still connected. There we go. It's a nice one. I can't tell. I just got something saying something lost, so I don't know if I'm still going live here, but I'm just going to keep going. That one there is probably 34 inches. All right. Maybe I'll take this off here. Try not to drop down the hole. There we go. See you later. And that's how it's done. Now, this is why you come out here just when you have time. It's 10:44. Caught a sturgeon. All right. Not skunked. Did get my minnow, though. Hopefully I stayed connected that whole time. That'd be just my luck. Catch a fish and then miss out on it. I think my camera just said it lost the face detection, so hopefully that's all it was. Find out here shortly. Yeah, so again, here's my bait. There's the hook. And then what I mentioned earlier is I take this little Rapala glow case and just glow it up 15 to 20 seconds. Oh, dang it. There's another fish down there. Son of a gun. I got 2 rods out of the water. That's the other downside of fishing solo. If someone was with me, they could have put that other rod back down there immediately, and now that fish swam off again. I do tend to find that when a fish comes in, sometimes 2 or 3 of them will come in, so tend to be on the lookout when you catch one. There might be another one down there again. Ha! Looks like you guys got to see that. That's good. Glad that stayed connected. Not sure what that message was on my camera, but probably just lost face detection. The other thing I found is when you, a lot of times after you catch your fish, your bobber stop gets all messed up, so you have to reset up your line again. Or set up your depth. Okay, that one's ready to go. Kind of end up with some chaos here when you catch one. But again, that was a perfect example of wasn't seeing anything on the sonar, just completely dead. And that fish came in and boy, like I said, he was all over the place down there looking for that bait. definitely as expensive as it is, the live scope helps a lot in those situations. And there's no other way to say that. I mean, with a flatter, you wouldn't have missed that fish. You would have saw the marks and everything. You wouldn't have seen which bait he was going for, which direction he was going. And there's another one coming through on the left side right now. Get back down there. Well, maybe we'll have a little window of action here. That's another thing I tell people. You'll have windows. You'll go hours without anything. And then you'll go an hour or two where it's like nonstop sometimes. So the hardest part is just, putting up with that downtime. It can be some long waits. I saw someone in this Facebook group I run, Minnesota Catfish and Sturgeon. They talked about being out here for 15 hours without anything. And then they were just getting ready to move. They got all packed up and then they caught one. So then what do you do? Do you move or do you stay? It's always the $1,000 question. There's one down here right now. I don't know if it's that same one, but he's right on this right rod right here. Looks like a smaller one. It's definitely a sturgeon. It's unfortunate I can't have the camera on me and on the sonar at the same time. And I think it would be fairly boring to have it either faced on me the whole time or faced on the sonar on the whole time. But I kind of defaulted to this just because you can see me when I'm talking to you. Oh, I just scared him off. I think I must have hit him when I was jigging there and he took off, zoomed off to the right. That does happen sometimes. You maybe hit him on the head or something with your sinker. Make sure I get this nice and secure. We don't want to lose that down the hole again. All right, I think we're ready to wait again here now. Hey, JP, long time. Thanks, man. Brandon, what's going on? Thanks. Looks like we're still live. Got, I don't know, 25 people on. I've been on for 53 minutes now, so that fish took about an hour. Sometimes you get out here and catch one right away. Sometimes you got to wait 5 hours. The spot I'm in now, historically, from what I've found, there's one right down here now, is that there tends to be more small to medium-sized fish, but more action. So I do kind of like to come to this area just thinking I might have some general action. And every once in a while, a big fish will stroll through here. I do have other spots that historically we've caught bigger fish, but you can go 5 trips in a row without catching one. So you kind of have to work that balance, especially doing guide trips. It's tough. Some guys want to catch, only want to catch big ones, and some people are looking just to have a little action. For me, I think having a little action with the shot of a big one coming through is a little better than going all in on a big fish. But sometimes guys will, book a couple trips or a couple days, and then we can kind of do both of those. It's always nice to get that first one for people, for sure. And sometimes that doesn't even work out. I'll go to a spot where it's been really productive and I'm really confident, and you don't catch anything. So it's frustrating for sure. However, that's 2 live streams now in a row that we caught one, so that's pretty cool. The one we caught on Wednesday was 39, and that one was definitely not 39. That was low to mid 30s. I didn't even measure that one, but all right. So I accomplished both my goals. I came out here, caught one on live, and during middle of the day. You know, that's what I really wanted to do. And I wanted to make sure this camera was working as well. I just picked up this new camera yesterday, so cross my fingers. Everything's working well. JP, you need to get down here and do this sometime. Good times. Again, this is a really tough time to do a live stream. Like, probably 90% of the people who would be watching are at work right now, so, and completely understandable. I'm doing this full time now, so I have some time on my hands. Just come out here and do it. Good thing is people can come watch this whenever they want. So if you're watching this on a replay right now, thanks for joining. Good to see a little action down there. Again, I'm really surprised I'm not seeing more schools of things just randomly swimming through. I'm zoomed up quite a ways on the bottom. So they might be swimming above where I'm not seeing them, or to the sides where I'm not seeing them. I'm just kind of focused on a small box right now. So that's possible. Hey, Charlie, thanks for joining. Yeah, appreciate that. It's always fun to see people come out here and catch their first one. And unfortunately, people have kind of also took the other part of that too, and they're really upset with me that I'm out here sharing this, that they don't want people out here and they think the place has been ruined. In fact, I've had some threats from people. You know, it's unfortunate, and I could maybe see that if it was a fragile fishery or something, you could just come out here and just, keep everything and fish, and, then it's gone and dead. And there's definitely some places like that, with especially like crappies, although they're cyclical, they'll come back. But you see these hot bites crappies coming through, and people just flood in there, then they're gone. And I can see why, people tend to get a little upset about that. But this, I mean, it's just, all of us were catching the same fish over and over again, and we get to come out here and have some fun and hang out with our friends and chance at, catching a fish of a lifetime. So, and we're just putting them all back, and they're very, catch and release friendly. They're really tough. So, it's just great to see people coming out here and getting out with their family and friends and having some fun. That outweighs all the negativity and threats that I get, but it does get frustrating for sure. Roscoe, I see people commenting about people out here with their vehicles, and generally I would agree with you. Driving on a river probably is nuts, but this is more like a lake out here, and I'm being completely honest. And when I say that the ice out here is safer than some of the lakes around here, this water that flows into this basin comes from 200 miles north of here, which is always super chilled and cold. It flows in here slowly, fills up this basin in the fall and super chills it, and you have great ice out here. Are there spots you have to look out for? Sure, but they're very, very small. In front of some of the marinas, like you mentioned, in front of the power plant down a ways down here. You got to be careful. But right now, you could drive a semi out here. There's 18 inches of ice, and it's really consistent. So I get it. People get worried about driving out here, and you do have to, monitor it from year to year. Last year, anyone who knows the area and the history last year, I do guide trips out here, and I didn't do one trip. I never felt that the ice was safe enough to take people out here the entire year. So that happens, but that was also the case in a lot of the lakes in the area too here in the metro. So I've been doing it long enough to know where the safe areas are. No ice is ever safe. That's a great thing to keep in mind. Like, things happen, but it's not as bad as people make it out to be. Yeah, I do have a large bump board. I can show that to you. I actually have an 80-inch bump board from Muskie Bumper makes this, so it folds out 4 times. So it'll measure an 80-incher if I need to. What I really do like this quad fold board, because you can look at this. This footprint is just tiny, and it's really durable. I can just throw it in the back of the truck or whatever. But I'd recommend getting one longer than 60, because there's a good chance you might catch a fish longer than 60. So, and the thing is I don't know. Some people don't care about that. If you don't care about an inch or two, just bring a tape measure from Home Depot or whatever. That's all you need. I've caught enough fish that it's a kind of important to me to get some accurate measurements. So especially like if you're fishing in a contest or something, get the bump board. It's not cheap. Looking at $150, but it'll last a long time. It's durable and accurate. All right, we've been on here for an hour and 2. It's nice having some questions up here. It keeps me active, talking about something. Not a whole lot to talk about when you're not or catching fish. I'll monitor my battery here. Make sure we don't run out of juice. I have my laptop out here. You can probably see it maybe in the picture here, and then I have that connected to my hotspot on my phone, and then my camera is basically running as a webcam, hard connected with a USB cord. And that seems to be working pretty good. I'm keeping a good signal. I don't know what the picture and audio is looking like, but I think I'm at 5G 3 bars, so it should be pretty good. I have no idea. I have a feeling my Verizon phone plan might say, hey, you're using too much hotspot data, so I'll have to take a look at that. I do like using this setup versus just going live with my phone, because I want to be able to monitor it with something. And these forward-facing cameras are just, junk on the phone. They're just not good resolution. And I want to use a good camera to do it. So, and this one here, this DJI Pocket, well, it's tracking me. So wherever I move my face, it's going to move. So if I fight a fish, it'll hopefully track me. Charlie, I'm really torn on moving spots. I was talking about that earlier. Like, I don't think it's bad to move spots, but I also think it's not bad to stay in the same spot. Like, if you're running into lots of mud puppies, I think the sturgeon are still going to come through there. The mud puppies do get annoying, and it gets tiring of catching them, and they're eating your bait and stuff. I guess it depends how mobile you are. If you think you can just move somewhere else and set up and it only takes, 20 minutes, half hour, I think, yeah, go for it, especially if you're not catching any fish. But especially for me in this big setup, all my mats and everything, and it's, when I look at my watch, I'm looking at an hour from when I just, reel up the line and start going. So I tend to not move. And almost no matter what's happening, I won't move, just because that gives us another hour with lines in the water. I think that's more important. Even, in the open water, I see people just, sometimes it's the same boats buzzing back and forth, and we've just been sitting on anchor, and we're not catching anything either. And then all of a sudden, bang, we catch 6 of them. And so if we would have moved, we wouldn't have caught those fish. So my theory is these fish are never staying in the same spot. They're always moving around in small pods, and they're just digging through the mud looking for food. They're big fish. They got to keep eating all the time. So they're just scrounging around looking for bugs and worms and whatever they can find to eat. And like deer grazing out in a field, you just got to wait for them to move into you. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes, if they're grazing in an area, you can set up right on top of them. And then when you move, it seems like you're a genius, but then they move out of the area and then you don't catch anything again. So I guess there's not a right or wrong answer to that, or there may be. I just don't know it. That's my theory, is just find a spot and set up and just wait it out. Hunter, my foam tiles. So the one thing I do is I get the upgraded ones. I think these are 3/4 inch, so they cost a little bit more. But I do like the forgiveness, the thicker tile, especially if you're wearing cleats or something. They'll put up to the cleats. Right now there's no snow out here, so you don't have a choice whether what you want to do or not. You just lay them down. But if there is snow, I'll just kind of pack it down. I won't shovel it out of here. Pack it down with my feet, just kind of level it out, and then put the tiles on top. If you have a snow base, say 6 inches or whatever, and if you shovel it clean and then put the tiles down, you're going to end up with a lot of water in here. That snow weighs quite a bit, especially if you park your vehicle right next to it. That's even more weight, and you're going to end up with a lake inside of there. So if you can deal with that, that's fine. But I just prefer keeping the snow down, using that as an insulator. I will, however, shovel out the area where my holes are in front here. I don't think you need to do that either, but it's just more of a, default what happens after I drill it out, have the slush. I have 2 doors up here and a snow shovel, and I just, drill my holes and then I shovel it out the door in front. So it ends up being clear in front of here. And I know a lot of guys will put tiles, completely on the floor and only have their holes through the tile. And I could probably do that too. But I found that I really don't need it. I kind of like keeping this whole area open, and it's less tiles you got to put up. Bill, I'm not sure they are really hard to catch during the summer. It's more about they probably go a little deeper, or sometimes a lot shallower than people would fish for them. I think it's a matter of finding them. They're always out there eating, So I think you can catch them all throughout the summer. In fact, I know there's guys that catch them out here. I think the season doesn't restart out here till maybe July. So I mean, it's well into the summer before the season even opens. Up on the Rainy River, they catch them all summer up there too. So I wouldn't say they're harder to catch, maybe just less predictable, and maybe they're eating something a little bit different than we might be using. Maybe they're just eating tiny bugs and stuff. But I would agree that in the fall, they really turn on when that water temp generally hits 50 degrees is when you want to get out here. All right, I do have something on the bottom here now. Something strolling along. Moving back and forth again. He's on this right side. He's a little off the screen, so I'm just seeing some flashing down there. Could be a mud puppy, I guess, because I'm not seeing a whole lot. But definitely something right down there in the mud. Might actually be a couple of them down there. Could be a mud puppy. Maybe we'll catch a mud puppy here on stream. Definitely some things down there, but I'm not quite sure if it's just something smaller or just outside the beam where it's not showing up very well. Sometimes a bunch of mud puppies will come through, just like an army of them, and the bottom is just crawling. The whole bottom is just flashing. They're all over the place, so that could be what just happened there. I'm hoping it's not mud puppies, but maybe it is. Hi, Carol. Thanks for joining in. Yeah, Chris, I was thinking that too. Like, I think they might go a lot shallower than people would think, especially way up here on this river, particularly some of these rocky, sandy areas where it's only 2 to 5 feet. You hear people out there with canoes and kayaks, going along and seeing them out there in that shallow water. So maybe they prefer the little faster flow there, or there's just the food they're looking for up there. There's some answers. I just, I'm not really sure. Brenda, on the Wisconsin side, your best bet would be It's called Ferry Landing in North Hudson. I forget what road it is there, but if you look up Ferry Landing in North Hudson on Google, it should show you where to get on there. There's a little kind of a makeshift boat ramp there with it's a sand ramp, so not a lot of people use it, but it's a good place to drive onto, a public place. Sometimes down there at the bottom, you can get some heaves later on in the year from the ice, but I think people are driving out right there too. So if you can't get on there, the next best one would be to go across the river over Bayport. Hubbs Point Drive is where people get on there, and that's kind of a townhome association. I think they have actual rights to that road, and they kind of control that. They open it and close it, and usually they wait till you can drive out here before they open the gate. So right now that's open. People are driving on right there too. So the last option is you can go up to the 36 bridge. There's a new boat ramp there in Oak Park Heights, right? I mean, it's right directly underneath the bridge. I don't know what road it is there either. You got to kind of snake your way down in there across the railroad tracks, and you can drive on right there too. So that's 3 options in the area that you can get out here. Yeah, jumping in the summertime, it seems like they do tend to breach more in the summer. And I heard guys on the rainy saying that too. You'll come into an area, maybe around like deeper holes too, but they'll just be jumping all around. But they're tough to catch for some reason. And no one really has a definitive answer to why they jump like that. The best one I've heard is that, they're just kind of communicating with each other. Kind of a playful type thing, almost like whales or whatever. But who knows? They could be jumping to clear their gills out, or maybe, adjusting their swim bladder. Would be nice to know, because I get asked that question all the time, and I really don't know. It's fun to watch, though. And sometimes they're jumping completely out of the water. And right next to the boat, we had one trip this fall. I was out on a guide trip, and it was about, 10:30, 11 o'clock, and we had a younger girl, maybe 6 years old, and she had fallen asleep, and she's in the chair falling asleep, and we had one jump right next to the boat. They kind of come up and they go sideways like a whale, like you'd see, and, splash water, and she actually got splashed sitting in the boat, and she got pretty scared by that. Right in the middle of her sleep, gets splashed by a big fish. Thanks, Bill. Yeah, I catch quite a few shovel nose out in the Minnesota, Charlie. I live in Jordan, so the Minnesota River is just like a mile from my house, and so I spend a lot of time out there. And it seems a lot of times earlier in the spring when the water's a little higher. In fact, this past spring when we were having some floods, like shovel nose was like the only thing I could catch. They were really, really active. They're not very big, obviously, for those of you who've caught them. Shovel nose is just a different species of sturgeon, and you see a lot more on the Minnesota River and the Mississippi. I've never caught a shovel nose out here on the St Croix, so I assume there's probably a few of them. I've just never caught one. But they're pretty cool. They put up a nice little fight, and like I said, they don't get very big, but they're a fun fish to catch. Their mouths are, I would say, wider and thinner, and look like a shovel, and I'm sure that's where they got their name from. They just look like a spade head, and their tail is really thin. That's a telltale sign. A lot of people mix up juvenile lake sturgeon and shovel nose. Shovel nose are very identifiable by their really thin tail, just like pencil thin. And then if you can actually see through their mouth too, if you put it up to the sun, it's almost transparent through their nose section. They're a lot thinner. Once you see each one side by side, it's very obvious which one's which. All right, we have one coming in here now. This is a nice one. He's going pretty fast though. Let's see if we can get him to stop. This is bigger than that last one for sure. Come on. Come on. He's cruising. Oh man. That was a 50-incher, I think. But he came through so fast. I didn't even have a chance to hardly react. But just a huge orange blob plowing through the bottom. He was on a mission. I didn't even get him to slow down. Well, that's unfortunate. That would have been a fun one to catch on stream there. like I said before, sometimes they'll come back, they'll circle around and come back, but that one seemed like he was late for work or something. Usually when I see them going that fast, they're 5 to 10 feet off the bottom, and I don't even usually do anything at that point. But this one came right through on the bottom, so it really got me excited, like he was going to eat, but I guess not. Merlin, I do not catfish through the ice in the wintertime. I spend a lot of times out there in the summer catfishing. I do guide trips out there too for catfishing, but never ice fishing for catfish out there. Part of it is I know what the current can do there, and it just changes so often out there because it's, going up and down so fast. And only during, some of the very coldest parts of the year you can get on there around, especially around my area. I know, down there in that Mankato area, St. Peter area, somewhere, New Ulm, there's some spots that are a little more consistent that you can get out on there. I did see some people out there by my house, so near Jordan, that have been out this last cold spell we had. I saw a bunch of people out with some holes drilled. I assume they're walleye fishing. But if I want to ice fish for catfish, I just go up to the horseshoe chain up by Richmond and Cold Spring. You can get some really nice ones up there, and it's kind of worth the extra, hour and a half to get up there because, well, I haven't been up there now for a while, maybe a year or two, but, years past you get up there. We had some, 100 fish nights. We're catching 100 catfish. So they're not, at that point, they weren't real big. They were 20 to 24 inches. I have heard that they're thinning out a little bit and you're getting some bigger ones up there now. So you don't catch quite as many, but the ones you do catch are pretty respectable. I've heard of a couple 20-pounders even caught up there. So yeah, if I want to catfish through the ice, I go up there. I know it's a lot safer and my odds are a little better, I think. That's interesting, Chris. Like I said, I have never once saw a shovel nose out here, and I've spent a lot of time with a lot of baits in the water. And again, a lot of people get confused by the juveniles, thinking it's a shovel nose. Not saying it was in your case, but most of the stories I hear, and then people show me the picture, it's just a small lake sturgeon. I'd say probably, 95% of the time. There's also some lake sturgeon being caught in the Minnesota River now too. I'm hearing more and more reports of people catching them, and part of that is a result they stocked them in Big Stone, which is the headwaters of the Minnesota. So, especially years like last year when we had record flooding, those fish are moving around and they're finding ways to get in the river. So, eventually, we'll be seeing more in the Minnesota River, I think, unless they find it just doesn't suit their liking and the habitat just isn't there for them. Then they just won't be there. I don't know a lot about the history of lake sturgeon in the Minnesota River, if there were a lot of them at one point, or if they just never really preferred it. I do know there were a lot in the Red River, and they are restocking that as well. So we'll be seeing that in the future. They put them in Ottertail, that system. There's sturgeon in the St. Croix River, or the St. Louis River up by Duluth. And they are getting them in some spots. So the future is bright for sturgeon fishing in Minnesota. I really wish we would have caught that one. That last one that came through was really nice. And again, I wish I could show you this on the sonar. I think what I maybe need to do is get one of these, is it the 106 units or something where you can have HDMI out? Maybe there's a way I could have some kind of picture-in-picture or or I don't know. I know these guys do it when they're not streaming. They just overlay that on their video. I don't know if you can do it while you're streaming, though. It would be fun to have that on there, especially when a fish comes through. I'm a little gun shy after losing my camera down the hole on Wednesday. I probably should have took the camera down for that last one, though. If it wasn't going so fast, maybe I would have, because it was pretty impressive how big it was. I do have the grid turned on right now. I usually don't fish with the grid on, but I just turned it on just so I could get some reference points. And right now, as I'm looking, they're 2-foot grids, so when the fish comes through, you can give a pretty good idea how big it was. And that one was, 2.5 to 3 grids. It was big. And that's all it takes. I mean, at any moment out here, you could catch a 70-incher. It's possible. Not necessarily probable, but it's possible. That night I caught that 78-incher out here. We saw one fish the entire night, and that one came through, and that's the one we caught. So it was quite the wait. And we thought it was going to end up being a skunk, and then next thing you know, you catch a state record. I am seeing a little more activity down there, though, some flashing, and every once in a while I'm seeing some smaller fish roam through up in the water column. So guess we just got to wait till they come through here. Now's about the time where you'd throw on some music or start doing some superstitious stuff, What can I do to get these fish to bite? Hopefully someone calls you, get a phone fish. What's your PB? I have caught a 78-incher out here through the ice. So that's the state record, which was caught in 2019. And that whole video is on my YouTube channel. You can go and watch that. That was kind of fun. Kind of a big ordeal. I was using an 8-inch auger at that time. And we would drill 3 holes kind of in a triangle shape. And it's usually enough to get even the biggest fish. And for whatever reason, I drilled 4 sets. And that last set, I just did a double and kind of put it next to my foot. I think we had 4 lines out at that time. And I just told John, the guy that was with me, I was like, I'm exhausted. We had 26 inches of ice, I think, at that time. And I was exhausted from drilling all those holes. I was like, I'm just going to put a double here. But battery's kind of wearing out and I'm exhausted. And when your battery wears out, it just adds more torque to that. So it's like, I'm just going to do a double hole. And of course, that's the one we caught the big fish through. We had double hole and the fish had no chance of coming through there. So yeah, it was a whole ordeal. We tried drilling more holes, and then someone came over and helped us. One of the guys that was out here had a 10-inch auger, came and made the hole a little bigger for us. That was fun, though. Good times. I think I had a much smaller house at that time too, or a shelter. And so it was pretty cramped in there. You bring in that big fish, and it was essentially as wide as that shelter. So we had to do some moving around. I didn't have my bump board, so we used a tape measure and kind of something to put its nose up against. And I'm fairly certain that fish has been caught a few times out here. there's no way to prove that. Every once in a while, someone will catch a, 77, 78 out here, and it's probably the same fish. There might be multiples out here. The DNR caught one out here and has a tag in it, or at least a pit tag in it. And I think they said it was 79 or 80 when they measured it. Not sure if that's the same fish or not. I mean, there could be multiples out here. Wouldn't surprise me if there's an 80 plus somewhere. Not necessarily in this specific area, but somewhere in the river. I remember a few years back, someone caught an 80-incher up by St Croix Park up there by Taylor's Falls from shore. And if I remember right, when that one was caught, it was caught 2 or 3 times that year. And that one was pretty identifiable. Like, it was pretty certain it was the same fish. It was really dark colored, very, very skinny, looking like it was just about ready to die. Yeah, hard to say about that shovel nose. It wouldn't surprise me if you caught one. They've got to be out here somewhere. I mean, they're in the Mississippi, so they must come up here. I just haven't seen one personally. And again, every time someone says, "Oh, I caught a shovel nose," they show me the picture, and it's not a shovel nose. The other thing interesting is the gar that are out here. Like, there's a lot of long nose gar, and I've never caught a long nose gar out in the Minnesota River. And there's, short nose gar everywhere out there, and never caught a long nose. And I'm pretty sure they're out there too. Tons of short nose though. There's times when we're catfishing at night and you can turn your headlamp on and it's just all you see is nothing but gar all over on the surface. They're kind of fun to catch too. So Merlin, that's the current Minnesota catch and release record. So I'm from Minnesota. I have a Minnesota license. So that's what it counted for. Ironically, and again, like I said, it might be the same fish. A guy caught one over here, Luke, over on the shore on Wisconsin, entered it, and I think it's the Wisconsin record now too. So the same fish might hold both records. Again, there's really no way to confirm that it's the same fish, 100%, but it is kind of funny that the same fish might hold both records. And I think he was able to claim it as a Wisconsin record because he had a Wisconsin license for fishing, inland waters. At one time he had a Wisconsin license, so he was able to enter it there. I don't know how they determine all that, but yeah, Chris, I do see them come through on the live scope sometimes, those paddlefish. I've never caught one though, out here or just in general. I've never caught one, and I really would like to catch one because I think they're really cool. Unfortunately, the only way to catch one is, foul hooking it or intentionally snagging it. And I know I did see some of the posts where people said that they did, catch these paddlefish well, on their dead stick rod with the little jig or whatever. And I'm convinced that the fish just swam through right into their jig, because if you've ever seen them swimming, their mouths are giant and they just swim with their mouth wide open. So, I mean, there's a good chance if they're swimming by and your jig is at the same, level, it'll just go right into their mouth. And some of these little tungsten jigs, those hooks are needle sharp, they're going to catch something. I haven't seen a whole lot where a paddlefish is actually, eating a jig. I would sort of like to get down to Oklahoma, though. There's some spots down there where they catch regularly. You know, almost every trip they're catching a 100-pounder down there. Again, it's snagging. Not necessarily the most ethical way to catch something, but it's the only way to catch them. And I would just like to catch one, just to, you know, examine it, you know, hold it and check it out and see it live in person. Not necessarily to eat it or eat the caviar or whatever they eat the roe out of them, but I just want to see one. They've really utilized LiveScope down there too. They're using these LiveScope units, and the guide will be out on the bow or whoever, and they'll just sweep that beam and they'll see the paddlefish and they'll kind of pick out the one they want to catch, and then he'll say, okay, cast at 2 o'clock, 60 feet out, and they got the, you know, these weighted treble hooks, and they'll see the bait come down, and they'll just say, okay, they'll tell you when to reel in, and they're reel in fast, or they're, you know, sweeping the rod, and makes it fairly easy to chase these fish around. And I think they are, in a lot of cases, doing catch and release. Like, so that's kind of interesting, you know, hooking them in the tail or the snout or the fin and just letting them go. But I've heard they are fairly good to eat. I imagine they probably taste like a sturgeon or a shark. All right, we're still waiting here. Seeing a little bit of flashing down there at the bottom, but nothing that's got me super excited yet. Not like that one that came through here a bit ago. I really want that one to come back. It's always good to see one too. Like, I used to tell people this LiveScope wasn't a whole lot of help for sturgeon fishing because you're just sitting there with your bait on the bottom waiting the fish to come in. But I've kind of went a complete 180 on that, and now I'm not sure I would be able to come out here without it. I've just learned so much. You know, the size of the fish, the direction they're traveling, how they're reacting to your bait. It's really a good learning tool. And pretty exciting to see a, you know, 50 to 60 inch or bigger fish swim through. It keeps that confidence inside of you, like, all right, there's fish moving through here every now and then. There's something down here moving around now. Like I said, sometimes they're just outside the beam, so you can't get a real good idea how big they are until they come right in directly under the beam. Almost like a flasher, you know, when you're fishing crappies or something, you'll see that real faint mark, you know, a weak light green signal, and all of a sudden it turns bright red. Definitely something down there, though. Again, I'm just shaking this, stirring it up a little bit. I think fish really, I've watched a lot of videos on YouTube, all different kinds of species, walleyes, lake trout, perch. When you can't get their attention, you drop it down there on the bottom and stir it up a little bit. It seems to always get their attention. Sometimes you can just let it sit on the bottom then, and they'll come and just pick it right out. It's either something really small or a mud puppy scooting along down there, because it never did really come into the beam. I'm just seeing some flashing. A couple weeks ago, we caught some really nice perch out here. That was the first time that ever happened for me out here. We hooked up with one of these sturgeon rigs. The guy I was with, he kind of jigged him up, and he ate it. I would have bet money on it was a mud puppy as it was coming up to the hole, and he pulls out, it's like a 12-inch perch. It's like, all right. Ended up catching a few of those that night. That was pretty cool. Chase, it's not even close, honestly, between open water and ice. We catch a lot more in open water. What I tell people on my guide trips that I take out, in the open water, I expect 1 to 2 per hour. So a 6-hour trip, we're looking at 6 to 12 per trip. Out here on the ice, I tell them 0 to 3 total. So 0 to 0.5 fish per hour. That's my expectation. Now sometimes it's worse, sometimes it's better. Some of the better nights I've had out here, we've caught over 30 through the ice. We have had a couple nights open water, we've caught over 50. But that's the outlier, kind of an anomaly. I think for ice fishing, I would say, the skunk rate is probably maybe 30 to 40%. I wouldn't say it's quite, half, but it's getting close. At the very least, with the live scope, you're seeing fish come through, and there's fish down there. To me, that makes it a little bit easier when you don't catch one. Where are we at? 1 hour 42. You might run this up till noon, maybe 12:30. People on lunch break can maybe stop in and say hi. As long as everything keeps running here fine. Eventually something might cut out, my phone connection or my battery. My battery's holding fine here. My battery on my laptop's good. For those of you that do come out here and sturgeon fish, you might know the season goes to March 1st. So you can fish all the way through March 1st here on the St Croix. On the rainy, you can keep on fishing right through the spring, right through, I think May 15th is the last day of the season up there. One of the changes coming through here for the Minnesota DNR is their licensing system. They're rolling out a new app where you can buy your license right through an app, and the timing is going to be kind of interesting this year because I think it got delayed a little bit. And I was just looking at my phone and I saw a message from someone saying that it looks like it's going to be delayed. So that whole timing is going to be interesting, especially for guys out here that fish beyond that day. They're going to have to come up with a way that we buy the license so we're able to fish completely right through, because your license expires the last day of February. So keep that in mind for those of you that are going to be out here March 1st, or those of you fishing maybe up on the Rainy River, or even for other species fishing for panfish. Keep an eye on that licensing, because looks like it might be a little unknown at this point. Kong, the ice is great out here. Best ice we've had in a long time. right where I'm sitting right now, we have 16 inches, and I've found, you know, up to 18 in other places. I would say it's a solid 15 to 18 everywhere you go. And it's really good ice. There's no layers of snow or honeycomb or anything. You could drive a semi out here, which is good to see after last year. Last year was terrible. I don't think the warm up yesterday really affected anything other than melting all the snow that's out here. There's no snow. There's a couple little, you know, just tiny little piles, but for the most part, it's completely snow free and just all ice. So bring your cleats for sure. Jerry, that's one of the reasons I came out here, is just kind of to show people they can come out here at any time of the day and catch fish. So I was hoping to get at least one, and we did get one. So it just kind of shows you can come out here at any time and catch them. I would say anytime you can put a line in the water is a good time. Not necessarily better or worse than at night. It just is what it is. And I do think it changes from day to day. Like there's certain windows that all of a sudden they just start biting. And I tell people this story quite often on my guide trips. You know, I've ran some contests out here, and, you know, there'll be 20 to 40 boats all out here fishing the same contest. And so all the fish are being entered through me. So I'm seeing all the fish that are entered, and it's catch and release. So, you know, people aren't like sitting on these things or anything. They're entering as soon as they catch them. And there were some years I'd sit for 2-3 hours and not a single fish was entered. And then for whatever reason, my phone just blows up, and everyone on the whole river is catching fish at the same time. So something triggers them. I don't know what it is, if it's barometric pressure, weather systems, solar, lunar, you know, type thing, time of day. I honestly don't know what it is. If I did, that would be pretty valuable information. Sometimes I do look at this. I have this app, this solar lunar app. I don't know what the name of it is. Hunting and fishing and hunting something. But it kind of goes day to day. Like today, it's showing 71%, which is good. It showed the peak at about 9 p.m. Right now, we're in a low spot right now, and then it's going to peak again at 2 p.m. We're going to have a peak. So whatever that is, I don't know if it's useful information or not. To me, when the fishing's really bad and I look at it and it says it's bad, I can use it as an excuse. But there are some days we don't catch anything, and it shows, you know, a 90% excellent day. So maybe it's useful, maybe not. Wednesday showed 95% excellent. I came out here and caught one in 15 minutes. So it's something to keep an eye on for sure. You might be able to pattern it somehow. Tomorrow it's showing 43% average, and the peak is at 2 a.m. tonight, and then slowly just going down to basically nothing at midnight tomorrow. So I would not let that stop you from coming out here, though. And that's one of the reasons I don't even like it's a little distracting. Like, you can keep data and logs and fish memories, and it becomes a distraction. You don't ever want to not come out here or not fish based on, you know, outside noise telling you shouldn't. Just come out here. You never know. Looks like we're keeping a consistent 20 to 30 people in here, not a huge audience, but I appreciate those that are stopping by. Say hi. Not only may I be providing a little entertainment, but you're out here entertaining me too, so it's a long wait. Not a ton of traffic out here right now, but I do expect, this afternoon, probably seeing more traffic, and then, of course, this weekend. I always see an influx of people on the weekend, which makes sense. People got the time off to come out and fish. I don't know. Some people are really against seeing people out here in traffic, and I think it's great. What better way to spend your weekend than come out here with your family and friends, kind of unplugging, getting away? Best bait spot. There's two options here. Let's see, you said close to Bayport. Walleye Willie's is up here on Highway 36, right there as you come down the hill, close to the river. I think it's right by maybe Napa or something like that. He's well stocked. At least he was last time I was there, with crawlers and minnows, and he's got the terminal tackle too, and I think he's got some rods there too. Blue Ribbon's another good one. Blue Ribbon Bait is fairly close. A lot of people use that one. Other than that, crawlers are kind of a crapshoot this time of year. I've had pretty good luck going to Quick Trip or Fleet Farm for my crawlers. Walmart does have crawlers. Half the time you open them and they're moldy and dead. So keep that in mind if you're getting them from Walmart. But Fleet Farm, Quick Trip, some of the holidays have them too. I will tell you this, so these last crawlers I got at Walleye Willie's, wherever he's getting them from, they're the best crawlers I had, even throughout all fall and everything. Very lively, very big. They're really large, which I like. I only use one at a time. Some of these ones I was getting at Quick Trip, I was having to put 2 or 3 of them on because they were smaller. I also like the dirt that are in these that I got at Walleye Willie's. It's the much bigger dirt chunks, much cleaner. I really do not like the crawlers that come in the real fine black dirt. I'll actually throw the dirt out, and sometimes I'll just keep the crawlers in the container without the dirt because it just gets on everything. It's fine on the ice, but it just makes a big muddy mess and gets on your clothes and your hands, and I don't like it. Almost 2 hours on here now. Thanks again for joining. I would never ask for you to like or share or do any of that, but it does help. Throw up a thumbs up. Helps people see it. It's unfortunate that you can't just put up a video and then all your friends and subscribers see it all the time. It feels like it gets hidden, Another thing I wish I could figure out when sturgeon are going to bite and how the YouTube algorithm works. Two of life's biggest mysteries. Yeah, I do agree with that, Chris. Like, the traffic out here, if everyone was all respectful, and drove a decent speed and didn't get out of hand, and it would be much better. But yeah, the added traffic on the weekend, some of that is some bad behavior, bad people, and some of them are out just having fun. But it does become a safety issue sometimes when people are driving fast, acting stupid. Hopefully no one gets hurt in the process, but it's never fun to have anyone come flying by your shelter, at 40 miles an hour, 40 feet away. And some people think that's okay. They don't see the issue with that. They would if they were on the other side of it, for sure. They would understand why that maybe not such a good thing to do that. And of course, you know, you got all the people out here drinking and smoking. Kind of a recipe for trouble, I guess. Hey Chris, yeah. I started doing that myself too. I basically just dump out all the dirt and wash helmet. This fall I probably went through 100 dozen crawlers on my trips, and I had to start doing that because it was just a nightmare, all that crawler dirt. And it was getting, you know, on my hands so bad, you know, I'd have to scrub the hell out of them every night. And so I started, you know, I wouldn't say washing all of them, but I would rinse them out a little bit and just get them out of that dirt. Like I said, that fine black dirt is some of the worst stuff. It's especially like I don't have carpet in my boat, but I can imagine some of these, especially some of these walleye guys, you know, they might have some carpet areas or something, or up on the bow, they have some maybe carpet up there. Then you got to wash all that out all the time. And yeah, I bet you that is pretty common thing. It's funny though that as a co-angler, that was kind of your duty to wash it out for him. I do remember the story you telling me the one time about the guy not wanting you to have sunscreen in the boat, and I thought that was a little over the top. Like, you know, that's more of a safety thing. You know, I have family members who have died of skin cancer, so that's not something to mess around with. Like, if you want to put on sunscreen, you should be able to put on sunscreen. Pretty slow on the old screen lately. Haven't seen much come through. Definitely would be nice to catch you at 1/50 on the stream. Wishful thinking, right? That one that came through was, though, we had a shot at it. We had a really good shot at it. Huh. I just jigged this one, and pretty sure it was a mud puppy. Took off. Kind of scared him. Was down there. I didn't even know it. All right, we do have something coming in here from the right now. We'll see if we can get him to come in. Again, he's just outside the beam, so I'm seeing some flashy stuff down there. And now he's gone. That's the one thing I wish the beam was a little wider. The problem is you wouldn't have all the fine detail, you know, if the beam was wider. But there are probably lots of fish swimming around here that we never even see because it's just a, you know, a thin line right below us here going down to the bottom. And unless they swim through that little thin line, you're not going to see them. I have heard that they're working on some technology where you get a third dimension, and I'm not sure how that would show up on the screen, but that would be really cool if they start making this like 3D where you see these fish, you know, swimming in another dimension down there. Yeah, the UPF clothing definitely changed that too. You can wear long sleeves and face masks, and you can almost just get away from sunscreen altogether. A little tougher on your face and hands, maybe. Guess you're wearing gloves and face mask, but yeah, Michael, I was saying that earlier in the stream too. Once I tell people, if they're thinking about buying a live scope, be careful, because once you have it, you're not going to want to fish without it. And so be committed. Find what you want to buy and buy it. And I know they have some units they came out with, like the P22, the transducer, where it's sort of a hybrid between the 2D and the live scope. It actually was the first generation of live scope, the Panoptics. But from what I've seen, I mean, you're just seeing blobs down there. And so if you want to go live scope, I would say just, go all in, just commit. Buy once, cry once. Especially if you really enjoy fishing. Again, it's not going to guarantee you catch fish. It does make it more entertaining. And to me, I think it's really a great learning tool. You learn what these fish are doing, reacting to your bait, how they move, the areas they're in. And this is all I've really used this for, ice fishing. I mainly bought this for catching shad out here. I watched some videos of guys catching shad and seeing how easy it was relatively for catching shad. And we use gizzard shad out here in the fall. And so I'll go to some known areas where I know are holding shad in the fall, and I can just take that live scope and sweep that beam across and find the schools of them. And then I just throw the cast net, and you can actually see the cast net right on the screen. It comes down and, falls right over the shad. It makes it much easier, especially since you have to, catch those shad and discard them every time you come out here for every trip. So if you could just take them home and freeze them and have a, endless supply, maybe you could just go out and spend some time catching them. But the fact that you have to go out and catch them every time, and I spend so much time out here, that it was a no-brainer to go get this live scope. Yeah, I have a guide trip out here tomorrow, so I'll be out here somewhere between 36 and 94. Kind of wanted to come out here and see if that warm weather happened to maybe do something to this ice out here. I didn't expect it to. It's pretty much exactly what I expected. It melted that top layer and then refroze last night, and actually made the ice even a little better out here. So we'll be out here somewhere. Might depend upon how much traffic is out here. Like I said, I like seeing all the people out here, but I also like getting away from people. So I kind of survey the lay of the area and find a spot out away from people. But again, that doesn't guarantee you won't have people by you, because you could set up and then people could set up by you too, I suppose. But at least when you initially set up, you're out on your own. I am hearing a little more traffic out there now. I wonder if people are maybe worked half a day or something, or getting out a little early. There's a surprising amount of people that come out and camp out here all weekend. And the way with technology is going, you can do that. You can have, battery power to last all weekend, fuel, foam mats, cots, sleeping bag. It makes it pretty easy, especially on a weekend like this weekend where it's, going to be, 15 to 30 degrees. Not quite as easy when it's 20 below all weekend and you're in a portable shelter like this. but people do it. Charlie, I think maybe I've seen those. Are they, I don't know what they're made out of. Do they like just mince up some bait and then make balls out of them and they dissolve? I've seen some soft balls that are kind of impregnated with bait, almost like a soft bait for walleye fishing or whatever. I've heard of people using those, but if it's a bait that would dissolve, like maybe that would be something to consider, especially it would get some scent in the water. I know they make like the catfish dough balls or whatever. I don't know if I'd recommend those, but it'd be interesting if they made some kind of baits, with shad or something like that. They were able to make them into little balls. I know people use scents out here. They spray their baits with scent and put things on their line. There was some jelly that people would use, smelly jelly or something like that. I forget what it was. I can't say it doesn't work, or I can't say it does work either. I guess I don't have enough data points to show one way or another. Again, I think it's whatever you feel confident with. If you're spraying your bait with shad spray and you think it works, I think that's great. Use it. I know a while back they used to have these, I don't even know if you can buy them anymore, but there's these almost like bath bombs or whatever, the fizzy balls, like a giant Alka-Seltzer, and they'd have those full of some kind of bait. And you could throw them down the hole and they would just, create bubbles and effervescence or whatever they call it. And I do think maybe something like that could work. And I remember there was some discussions about that maybe not being legal in Minnesota, considered, littering or waste or chumming. I don't even know if you can get those anymore, but it did seem like a fairly good idea for fish that are using scent, to eat, like catfish or sturgeon. Maybe even a curious thing if they just all of a sudden see these bubbles down there. Almost like a whole pickled fish. Huh. That's interesting. I know you can buy there's one down here right now. He came out of nowhere. All right, let's see if we can catch this one now. So we're on this left side. Oh, he just went out of the cone again, or the beam. Try to stir some stuff up here. That was also a really nice one. Not as big as that last one that came through, but probably a 40-incher. He's still down there kind of moving in and out. Try to get his attention. Not seeing him. Huh. Guess he went in front of me or behind me. Over 2 hours now for the stream. 2:10. Probably going to go till about 12:30. That way some people are maybe taking their lunch break can join in. As long as something doesn't die, my camera or my battery. I know, Kong, right? Eat it. Eat it. I wish it was that easy. Just ask for it. Oh, anyways, those some of the preserved bait I was thinking about, you can go to Fleet Farm and they have the preserved shad or shiners or whatever. I would for sure recommend not buying those because I have tried those quite a bit, especially the shad, and the fish won't even touch them. So don't waste your money on those, the whole preserved fish. Huh. I just saw one swim up a little higher there. I don't know where that other one went. It just swam through here, I guess. For anyone watching, if you haven't heard, the power plant is currently off. It ran a couple weeks ago. It ran for a few weeks. And there was some open water, and I do think when that warm water is flowing out of there, it may attract some bait and some fish. But I think people do put way too much emphasis on that power plant. So back in the day when it ran 24/7, it would run all summer, all fall. As that water temp continually dropped throughout the fall as we moved into winter, those shad knew where that warm water was. So all these gizzard shad would just, pile into that warm water. And then all of a sudden we'd, get a huge cold snap and we'd get some ice out here or whatever. And those shad would just be dying off in mass. That for sure brought the sturgeon in. Having the whole area just, full of dead shad on the bottom, it was a buffet for them. So, and then the power plant would just keep running. So that was for sure a hot spot to go and catch some sturgeon, especially those first few, I would say maybe a few weeks after first ice. They'd be down there. And it almost seemed like it'd get to a point where they didn't even want to eat anymore. They were so full. We would try to move out. I would put a camera down and you could see the whole bottom was full of shad. And think about the competition there. You're dropping your bait in a pile of shad down there. Like it's like a needle in a haystack thing. So we would actually push off to where we weren't seeing any shad anymore out on the edges. And then you have a little better chance of the fish finding your bait out there, out on the edges where you're not seeing as much dead bait. But that all changed now because the plant is on demand. So it didn't turn on till well after the ice had formed out here. So eventually things were finding their way up there and you were catching some fish. But again, people were thinking back to the old days, when it was a really good spot to fish. And it not necessarily a bad spot to fish, but not as good as it used to be. And now it's off, and there's skim ice across where there was open water. So if you're in that area, be cautious. There are a few signs out there showing thin ice. If you're around the plant at all, or even just driving through that area, just hang on the Wisconsin side. You'll be fine. Good ice out here. Would like to catch one more fish before I end the stream. We'll see if we can make that happen. Oh, we're seeing one here now. Oh, that's a nice one. Where's he at? Oh, he was right on me. Shoot. Oh, he's going to this one. It's a nice one. Probably a 40-incher. Come on, eat it. Eat it. Turn around. Oh, man. I wish I could show you guys the screen here. Oh, I thought for sure that one was going to eat it. But I tell you what, it's just a great example, you know, like it's noon. We're seeing fish and having chances at catching them. So there's no bad time to be out here. I really thought that one was going to eat it. He looked amped. You can kind of get a feeling when they're coming towards your bait. They just kind of really slow down, methodically moving around, and they get really bright colored on the screen. And I did think that one was going to bite. I was wrong. Right after I said I wanted to catch one again on stream, too. That one just showed up out of nowhere. Now he's gone. It's always good to know there's fish in the area, though, here, moving around. And like I said, I never get discouraged when I just all of a sudden they're gone. Like they're just not in the beam. They're still down there, just out of viewing range. Bummer. So wait for the next one now, or for that one to come back. Kong, yeah, I wouldn't say we get a lot of foul hooks, but it does happen from time to time. I was explaining earlier, you know, that these sturgeon have these huge pec fins. So your line's straight down. They're kind of swimming through with these big airplane wings. They're bound to, you know, run into your line from time to time, especially when they're kind of on the hunt looking for your bait. If they're close to your bait moving around, sometimes they get stuck right here in the, I just call it the armpit. It happens. It's not like people are out here, you know, actively trying to foul hook them or snag them. It's just they just run into your line sometimes. There's not a whole lot you can do about that. Usually when that does happen, I was explaining before, is they run into your line and all of a sudden your bobber, you'll just kind of see it go at an angle and it'll just go right under. And you think it's the fish, you know, taking off with it, ate it and take it off. But I would say the vast majority of time, that's not how they bite. You know, you'll see your bobber bob or pop up and sit on the side. That's my favorite way to see, you know, the bobber just comes up and lays on the side, set the hook. He just ate it. Generally, when you see the bobber just shoot under, the fish just swam into it. Every once in a while, they'll get tail hooked too. And I don't know if that's them running into the hook or maybe missing a hook set, or I think some of it is because you kind of don't think about this sometimes, you know, what the baits are like down at the bottom. You're just thinking about what you're doing up here. But you think about the baits sitting on the bottom, especially you have multiple lines, 4, 5, 6 lines down there. And now you got a sturgeon down there trying to eat your bait and his tail's, you know, moving around. And I think that's what happens sometimes too, that the tail just swipes the line, or sometimes even the line gets wrapped around the tail, you know. It's not like a, you know, 15 or 20 inch fish down there that doesn't, you know, need the separation that a, you know, big 6 or 7 foot fish does. And especially when I'm by myself, I'll spread out these holes as far as I can, you know, one side of the shelter to the other. One, to keep that separation, and two, if I do get hooked up, he can't swim into my line instantly. I don't know a lot about this, but one thing I do know, the more lines you put down there and the closer together you put them, the more chaos you're going to have, entanglements and everything else. Legally on the Wisconsin side, if you're over the center line, you can have 3 lines per person. And some people feel it's necessary. If you have 3 people, you got to put 9 lines down. Now on the open water, I can see that you can cast out all around your boat and spread those out. Out here on the ice, you put down 9 lines, you're in a world of trouble. I'll tell you what. I say good luck if you do that. Not saying you won't catch the fish, but you'll be going through a lot of line and spending time retying. On Wednesday, I was talking about Minnesota's going to make the jaw jackers or the automatic hook setters legal. So I do think that might be an option to try out here. I'm sure people have tried it. There's probably some reports of people have used it. If anyone in the chat, if you used one, let me know and let me know how it worked. But on the Wisconsin side, you can use them legally right now. But I do think that you could get those set light enough to where when those fish bite, it'll set the hook on them. So it's an interesting thing, especially if you want to put out extra lines. You could put one outside your house and have one set up. You might be able to catch one away from where you're set up and, maybe cover a little bit more area and give you a little better chance. So I might even have to try that after they make them legal. The fact that they're only legal in Wisconsin right now, I haven't bought any because this is really the only place I would use them. But I do think if they make them legal in Minnesota, I probably would try a couple out here, and maybe even I do catfishing up on the horseshoe chain, and I think it would probably work for that too. So I might pick up a couple. So it sounds like this session they will make them legal, but then it won't go into effect till 2027, I think. There's going to be a year overlap there, so they'll make them legal next year, or the law will go through this year, so then it won't be legal till 2026 season, I think. Well, the 2026 season won't be till, ice fishing won't be till, December 2026. So essentially, 2027 we'll be able to use them probably. Yeah, I would. That doesn't surprise me at all, Chris, that you had one mouth hooked and tail hooked. Hopefully, the one on the tail popped off because if you got them hooked really well, the mouth and the tail, I think you're screwed. You probably have to cut one of the lines. Yeah, those tangled stories, I think, happen pretty often. So when I'm with people, especially on guide trips, I'm like, as soon as we know we're hooked up, everyone else reel up. And that's sort of why I like just having one line per person. You manage your own rod and not managing 2 rods. I just think it's not worth the effort, the extra baits down there. I think if a fish is in the area and it's going to eat, it's going to find your bait, whether you have, 2 lines down or 6 lines down. I think if you can, separate those lines by 4 or 5 feet, that's probably a good rule of thumb. But some people feel it necessary to fish with as many lines as they're legally allowed. So I say go ahead, but good luck. Yeah, if I remember correctly, when I caught that 78-incher out here, I was with John, and I think his bobber started bobbing before mine did, and he pulled up and set the hook, thinking he had caught it, and then all of a sudden it popped off, and at the same time mine bobber was going down, so then I set the hook, and I think it turned out probably it was, same thing. The tail hit his as he was eating mine. I don't know a lot about crappie fishing out here, Mike, but I have heard similar things to what you're saying. The crappies are pretty shy out here. And what I have heard is when people see them come through, they kind of get their attention, and then they just, kind of dead stick it and maybe work them just very, very subtly. I've heard tiny baits work out well out here for the crappies, but they are some really nice crappies out here. Like I was saying earlier, I've heard of, 13 to 15 inchers out here. And I think there's a mix of whites and blacks, maybe some hybrids too. But I have heard the same thing, that they are tough to catch out here. Takes a lot of finesse and maybe even chasing them down a little bit. I've heard they kind of move through pods throughout this whole basin. They don't really hang in the same area. Kind of almost a waiting game, kind of like this is for the crappies. Yeah, I would think I would see crappies moving through here, but I really haven't seen anything. Maybe a couple times I saw a school of fish move through. I'm getting a little cold. I'm going to finally turn my heater on. Man, this is perfect ice fishing weather, though. Couldn't ask for much nicer. 30 degrees, no snow, 16 inches of ice. Just perfect. I considered going up to Mille Lacs today, actually. I've been seeing a lot of great reports of, catching a lot of perch up there. And I just ate the last meal of fish I had in my freezer the other night. So I was like, that'd be a good opportunity to just go grab some meat for some meals or whatever, and have some fun catching some perch. It sounds like they're been fairly easy to find up there. They're catching 11 to 14 inchers and a lot of them. And it seems like they're all over the lake, right out, kind of edges of the mud. That's another one of those things where, the bite gets good for a year or two and then it's gone. So I would say if anyone's looking to catch some perch, definitely check out Mille Lacs and what's going on up there right now, because it probably won't last very long. And unfortunately, kind of a side part of that is there's so many there that the walleyes are got plenty of food to eat. And it sounds like the walleye fishing has been a lot slower up there due to the fact that, they got tons of things to eat. So but I might try to make a trip up there, maybe next week, early next week. I don't have any guide trips planned. I might try to get up there, and I think the limit's 20 or 25. So, you get 20 12-inch perches. That's a fair amount of meat. I'm not one to go out and keep everything I catch, but that's sort of a situation where you could, get a little bit for a few meals. And they're kind of fun to catch too. Not as fun as sturgeon, but you don't have to wait hours. What are we at? 2 hours, 30 minutes. Let this stream roll a little bit longer. Like I said, I would like to catch one more fish. One more. I did catch one, though, so anyone who's in the stream right now and wants to see it, I forget what point it was. It was like maybe an hour in, 45 to 50 minutes in, we did catch one, so. We just need a big one to stroll through here. So we had a handful more people come in here. Must be people on their lunch stopping by. Let's see if we can catch a lunch break sturgeon here. Makes me hungry for some lunch now that I mention it. I do have some Quick Trip Glazers out in the truck. Maybe I'll go grab one of those. Have a little more of my breakfast. I'm not sure, Kong, how long I'll be out here. I kind of wanted to see how things were going out here. I don't think I'm going to be out here too long. I do have a guide trip tomorrow, so I don't want to make it too late, and I got to get things recharged. Make sure I'm ready to go for tomorrow. Plus, I'll probably go out on a date night with my wife tonight or something. Since I have tonight off, nobody wanted a guide trip tonight. I'm sure there'll be plenty of people out here, though, tonight and tomorrow. And again, if you're coming out here, especially if you haven't been out here before and you don't get hung up on where you have to go, just go out to the middle of the river and punch some holes. I would say either the middle of the river or right where it starts, making the flat from the first break, anywhere along the edges there. My magic numbers always seem to be 30 feet, 30 to 35. I don't get too upset if I set up and I put down, it's, 28 feet or whatever. One of my spots I was fishing last week was 24 feet. That was right on a break, and I caught fish there before, so I was a little confident that fish would be coming through. So don't think if you're in a spot and you've never fished there before that fish won't be coming through, because they will. Some of you might know Joel Styrus from the Minnesota DNR. He does the tagging studies out here. So he has, 1,000 of these fish tagged. He's got receivers out here. Some of the fish have radio tags in them. And, as they swim through, they're pinging these receivers and they're triangulating their location or whatever. And he was nice enough to share in the Minnesota Catfish and Sturgeon group on Facebook just a synopsis of one single fish and the movement of that fish. And it was kind of a snapshot of the 36 bridge down to Bayport. And it, marked a location everywhere that fish had gone. And I think it was about a year's snapshot. And the whole map was just painted yellow where that fish had been. Like, there was really nowhere that fish had not been. So you think of that over a year's time. I mean, they're moving everywhere, literally. So sometimes people think I'm just, I'm kidding when I say fish anywhere, but I'm really not. Like, just go out. And what it does is if you plop down in a spot and you catch a fish, it really builds your confidence. And to me, that's even more important than, finding a spot that everyone says is good. You know what's even better? Finding a spot that, you can kind of say you found and confident about it. Go do your thing. That's what I say. Come on, fish. I'm surprised this live stream is held up this long. Usually you end up losing connection or, battery conks out or something. Everything seems to be going okay here. And the best part, I haven't lost my camera down the hole. For those of you that might have joined here later, I was telling the story. I have a magnetic mount where my camera is hooked up right here, right now. And it's a DJI Pocket. And it kind of tracks me here as I'm moving around. So it's kind of nice. I can walk around. And I really wanted to show people the live screens or the live scope. So I took it off and I was showing a big fish that came through. You can go back to the stream and see it. Right at the end of the stream, there's a fish coming through. And it was, good probably a 5-footer. And then it kind of went off the screen. So I went to put the camera back up on the magnetic mount and I got it there and I stepped away, but I have a USB cord attached to the laptop and I got tangled in that in my foot and I pulled it off and it, of course, this whole house, anywhere it could go, went right in the hole. And it's not even right below the hole. It's off to the side, but it bounced and bounced right into the hole. Luckily, it was still attached to the USB cord, so I pulled it up, but the camera's not waterproof, so yeah. She gone. I had to go buy a new one yesterday, so that was a $600 oops. What are you gonna do? That's the first thing I've ever lost down the hole, though, honestly, so I guess I was due for something like that. I hear people dropping their phones down the hole all the time, and one thing I've never done yet, knock on wood, no wood in here to knock on. Thanks again for joining, and thanks for the thumbs up. I appreciate it. I wish I could catch some more fish for you. Unfortunately, it's a waiting game. Back in the day when we were catching, this power plant, when it was consistently running and predictable, we could come out here and catch 20 to 30 a trip. That would have been fun, doing a live stream of that, because you had consistent action and predictable. Now it's predictably slow. You do have some good nights out here. You still get into double digits every now and then, but that's kind of the exception. What do we got here? 12:37. Should make a hard cutoff. All right, I'm going to go till 1 o'clock. I'll make a hard cutoff at 1 o'clock. Call it a day. That'll be roughly 3 hours. Man, that's a long live stream. That's probably way too long. But maybe people jump on here every now and then. Looks like we got 15 or 20 so in here right now. If anyone has any questions, let me know. I'll try to answer them the best I can. Or if you just have this running in the background, passing time, so be it. I sure would like to catch a fish, though. See if we can stir up some activity down there. Yes, I thought I'd come out here and do this because I was getting so many questions in my like my Facebook Messenger. I was just, I just couldn't get to all the questions, people sending me messages. And then I found out, I didn't even know this, but maybe some of you don't know this either. If you go into your Facebook Messenger, some of the messages you missed are in the messages request tab. So you can pull that down and you can see a bunch of messages. And I always knew that, but I didn't realize there was also a spam tab on there too. And I just assumed spam messages were in there. So I clicked on it the other day and I had just, dozens of messages, and some of them were, fairly important ones that I wanted to get, people inquiring about guide trips and wanting to book guide trips, and never even seen the messages. Or people responding to something I had asked them or something, honest to goodness stuff that I really wanted to see. And Facebook just threw it in my spam folder. So a little tip for people who maybe are waiting on a message or waiting to hear from someone, or, can't figure out why they're not getting messages, check your spam folder. For whatever reason, Facebook just likes to dump stuff in there. And there is stuff in there that I didn't want to see either. Don't get me wrong. But there were some that shouldn't have been there. And it's kind of frustrating. So anyways, yeah, I saw those questions. I was like, well, maybe I'll just do a live stream out here and people can jump on and then ask me some questions about that. I would say, in my opinion, that the bite during the day might be a little bit slower, just based on my experience. It seems like the twilight hours are better. Sun up, sundown, maybe an hour window around that kind of bracketing. But I wouldn't, if you can't get out in those times, I wouldn't say don't go out. If you can get out now, get out now. We've had plenty of opportunities to hook up here. The fish just didn't want to eat. We've marked, I've probably marked within the last 3 hours, I've probably marked, 4 50-inch fish. And we did catch one. So you just don't know. Unfortunately, the one we caught wasn't over 50. The sun's getting pretty high now, though. It's really lighting up the ice, and it looks kind of cool in here right now. And I do think snow cover probably has a factor, too, in the wintertime. Sturgeon really don't use their sight, I don't think, a whole lot for feeding, but I think the amount of light penetration from the snow has some sort of factor to it. I mean, it's obvious it does for other species, so it probably does affect the sturgeon as well. And like I mentioned, there's no snow out here right now. at all. Yeah, it's a good way to spend the morning, though. Better than sitting at home at the couch watching videos, because that's what I would be doing. When I'm not fishing, I'm watching fishing videos. When I'm not fishing or watching videos, out doing guide trips, fishing. I mean, a lot of fishing in my life. All right, there's a huge one right now, and it's about 5 feet up, and it's just slowly coming down. So hopefully we can get his attention. It's weird how sometimes they'll do that. Just as out of nowhere, this big fish will appear and just kind of slowly come down, and now he's out of the beam, so I can't see him. Oh, there he is. Just came back in to view again, except now he's over to the right of me, and it looks like he's going the wrong way. Come back. Like I was saying before, it seems like when you do see a fish, then all of a sudden you see maybe a second fish or a third fish. So not only does it get my attention for that one fish, but it also, keeps me on point to know that there's probably a couple other fish around in the area. That fish definitely went off to the right of me. Just got buzzed by a craft. Like a big military thing. There's an app you can check. Let me check and see if I can see what that was. Something radar. Now I can't find the app. I thought it was Radar Now or something. Oh, he's coming back. Yeah, I can't find the app now. What the heck? Oh, they changed the name. Now it's AirNav. So here it is right here. Keen 500 LN is. I don't know what that is. Yeah, it just showed the loop he did, and then Howard 500. Whatever a Howard 500 is, sounded pretty big, whatever it was. Now I'm going to look it up. Howard 500 L37. Wow, that looks like an big old prop plane. Whoa. Now I kind of would have seen that thing. There's the, I don't know if you can see that. Probably not going to be able to see it. It's a real old big prop plane. Probably military. Lockheed. Just got a connection warning. Interesting. I definitely have an awesome wife, Chris. Also helps I don't have any kids, you know, like probably won't be able to do this as often. All right, we have 10 minutes. I'm going to end the stream in 10 minutes. So again, thanks everyone for joining, and thanks for the likes and shares and thumbs up. Might do this again. Not sure if maybe I can do it up on Mille Lacs. I don't know. I don't know if I have a good enough connection to do it up there. If I decide I want to go like perch fishing next week or something, maybe I'll throw up a stream. Definitely not as exciting catching perch as it is sturgeon. Not like we're catching sturgeon, but we did catch one. See if we can catch one at the buzzer here the last 10 minutes. Can't believe I ran this thing for 3 hours. Braden. So for bait, right now I'm using crawlers and fatheads. I just kind of pinch the fatheads and put chunks of them, you know, a head, tail piece. I do sometimes, in fact, I think one of these I do keep one live. Not sure how long they stay live down there, but I do think the little extra movement you have down there with a live one just might get their attention. So I kind of like to keep one live down there, just struggling on the bottom. So even if I'm not, you know, jigging or string up the bottom, you know, maybe that'll help with a little extra movement down there. You can use cut up sucker minnows, cut up shiners. I don't think you can go too small, but I think maybe you could go too big. Like, I don't tend to put large amounts of bait down there like I would like in the fall when they're feeding heavily, especially on dead fish dying from the cold. I've been out here at times where we've dropped down a little, you know, crappie jig with one wax worm on it, or your larva, and a sturgeon came through and sucked it up, just a tiny little pebble of a thing, you know. So I don't think you can go too small. If they're coming through and they're going to eat it, they're going to eat it no matter the size of it. So I think sometimes people tend to go a little overboard with thinking you got to gob, you know, half a dozen crawlers on there. I don't think that's necessary. Just my personal opinion, but and I do think, you know, little chunks of shad would probably work too, but there's no way to really get shad unless the power plant happens to be running and you have shad jumping through your hole, which we've had before. As they're kind of in the dying process, they're jumping around, and we'll have them come up the hole, and then you can just cut them up and use them for bait. But other than that, it's really tough to get them. You can't freeze them. You can't keep them on hand. So, but I think that would probably work too. I imagine it's pretty tough to get out here with 6 kids, especially younger kids. I've seen that, you know, with some of my friends. their time available to fish definitely revolved around their kids, and it should. That's the way it should be, you know. Once the kids are grown up, you know, you can spend a little time out here, or when they're babies, you know. And then sometimes they get old enough you can take them out here, and they can be out here with you. Something like this, you know, kids don't have to be very old to come out here and sit out here. They just have to have a little bit of patience, which, you know, a lot of them don't, understandably. I know grown people that can't handle sitting out here and staring at a bobber or a screen for a few hours. So all depends what your sort of fishing is, what you prefer. I kind of like it. I just like being out here hanging out, even if I don't catch any fish. It's relaxing. So, Brayden, if you're coming out here for the first time, what I've been saying is, you know, make sure you have a decent rod with a decent sized line, you know, 50-pound braid. When you come out here, don't be hung up, you know, about spots. Anywhere between, you know, Stillwater and Hudson, get out in 30 feet of water and just go find your spot away from people. Don't think you need to be by people, you know. They're not set up there just because, you know, there are some areas. Sorry, I just got distracted because I saw my bobber moving here, but I don't see anything on the screen. There's some areas that kind of congregate people where they're catching maybe some panfish, crappies, whatever. Just go find a spot somewhere out in the middle of the river, 30 to 35 feet, and you know, like I said, take those crawlers and fatheads and just let them sit on the bottom, and use a bobber as an indicator. I have some videos on my YouTube channel that kind of go through it in detail. My best advice is just come out here and get baits in the water and just wait. Don't get discouraged if you don't catch anything, you know, in a few hours. That happens. Sometimes you gotta wait 10 hours before you catch one. The good thing is when you do finally catch one, you know, it could be a 60-incher. And it's funny how that varies. I tell people sometimes it's, you know, it's kind of like going to the casino and playing a slot machine. Sometimes you know, you put $10 in and you hit a jackpot, and sometimes you got to burn through a couple grand before you hit a jackpot. So it's all about timing. I know guys who have come out here and in 10 minutes they catch a 60-incher. Some guys, you know, spend a couple of years out here trying to catch one that big. Time on the water and don't get discouraged. It's easy to do though, because especially if you're not catching anything, you're like, what am I doing wrong? What should we change? That's not necessarily a bad thing to do. You try different things, try different spots. But I think you can also just come out here and just plop down and wait it out. Then once you do catch that first one, you're like, okay, that's how it works. All right, 3-minute warning, fish. Sometimes you give them that final warning, they hear you, they'll come through. That's one of my superstitions. You got to give them the verbal warning. Well, at least we're able to catch that one earlier on. That worked out all right. Got to check out the conditions out here. Got to test out my camera setup. Got to prove you can come on out here at 11 o'clock and catch one. Also a good representation of you got to sit here for hours. Keep your expectations low, but your confidence high. If your expectations are low, then you'll never be disappointed. Yeah, 10 years old is a good time to be out here. Good time to start and get the kids. Usually that age, they can usually sit for a few hours too. I take out quite a few kids on guide trips, and I've kind of seen the range from not being able to sit out here to let's sit out here longer. They're not even ready to go after 6 hours. I'm sure a lot of that has to do with prior experiences too. I would guess someone who's never been ice fishing would have a hard time sitting out here for 6 hours. Doesn't look like we're going to catch another one. Our time is up. I tried. All right. Well, again, thanks for joining. Thanks for watching along, asking questions. I'll try to do this again in the future. Kind of gives me a little entertainment while I'm out here too, fishing, keeping me stimulated, answering questions. Go ahead and maybe give this a thumbs up, and maybe more people get to see it in the future. Thanks, Charlie. Appreciate it. Have a good day. Good luck to everyone getting out here this weekend. Feel free to share me a picture if you catch one, especially if you're first time out here and you find a little success. Let me know. See you later. Thanks a lot.